This is the Wife of Bath's tale, including part of the Wife of Bath's prologue. The Wife of Bath spoke next. Unfortunately, she was a little deaf, but she could make cloth better than the weavers of Ypres or Ghent. She took precedence over all the other women of her parish. If anyone went up to make an offering before her, she was so angry that she was drained of all Christian charity. I swear the kerchiefs she wore on Sunday weighed more than 10 pounds. She had on red stockings and soft new shoes. Her flushed face was bold and handsome. She'd been married 5 times, not counting other friends in her youth. A seasoned traveler who'd made pilgrimages to Jerusalem, Rome, and Boulogne, she sat comfortably on an ambling horse. Her hat was as big as a shield, and an overskirt covered her ample hips. She enjoyed laughing and joking. No doubt she knew all the cures for love, because she'd been an expert on that subject for years.
In olden days, when Arthur was king, all Britain was filled with fairies. I speak of a time many hundreds of years ago when the elf queen and her lively company danced in green meadows. But nowadays no one can see elves because all over the country holy friars are thick as specks of dust in a sunbeam, blessing halls and rooms, kitchens, bedrooms, cities, towns, castles, high towers, villages, barns, stables, dairies. And as a result, there are no fairies. Where elves used to roam, the friar himself wanders around his district, begging in the morning and in the afternoon. It so happened that King Arthur had in his court a young man who one day was riding by a river. He saw a maiden walking all alone. In spite of all she could do, he forced himself upon her. This oppression stirred up a lot of noise. It came to the attention of King Arthur, and the knight was condemned to death. According to the law of that time, he would have lost his head if the queen and her ladies hadn't begged for mercy for him from the king. The king turned him over to the queen to do with as she wished. It was up to her to decide whether the knight would live or die. The queen thanked the king. One day, when the time was ripe, she said to the knight, "You are not yet sure of your life. I will spare it for you if you can tell me what it is that women want most. Watch out, or you'll feel the sword on your neck. If you can't tell me right now, I'll allow you to search for a year and a day to find a satisfactory answer. Before you leave, you must promise that you'll return and give yourself up to this court." The knight sighed with sorrow, but what could he do? He wasn't free to act as he pleased. At last he decided to go wandering, and to return at the end of the year with whatever answer God provided. He said goodbye and went on his way. He asked the question everywhere he thought there was a chance of learning what women love most, but nowhere could he find 2 people agreeing together on the subject. Some said that women love riches best. Some said honor. Some said fine clothes. Some said pleasure. Some said frequent widowhood and remarriage. Some said our hearts are easiest when we're flattered and pleased. I'll tell you honestly, that's near the truth. A man can win us best with flattery, attention, and effort. That'll catch all of us. Some say we love best to be free to do just as we please, without criticism of our faults, to be thought wise and sensible. There isn't one of us who won't kick up a fuss when rubbed the wrong way, even if it is by the truth. He who tries it will find that no matter how vicious we are inside, we want to be thought of as wise and pure. Some say that it's our great pleasure to be considered dependable and trustworthy, and to hold steadily to a single purpose, and not betray the things that men tell us. But that tale isn't worth a rake handle. We women can't keep a secret. This knight's heart was heavy when he realized that he couldn't find out what women love best. But he could stay away no longer. The day had come on which he must turn towards home. Worrying as he rode on his way, he happened to pass the edge of a forest, where he saw more than 24 ladies dancing. Eagerly he drew near the dance, hoping to learn something. But when he got close, the dancers vanished, and he didn't know where. He didn't see a living creature except for the ugliest old woman you can imagine sitting there on the green. The old woman stood up and said, "Sir Knight, no road goes through here. Tell me what you're looking for. Perhaps I can help. Old people know a lot."
"Dear mother," said the knight, "I'm as good as dead, unless I can tell it is what women want most. If you can tell me, I'll make it worth your while."
"Give me your hand," she said. "Promise to do the first thing I ask of you, if it's in your power, and I'll tell you what you want to know."
"I give you my promise," said the knight.
"Then," she said, "I can assure you your life is safe. I'd bet my own life that the queen will agree with me. The haughtiest wearer of kerchief or headdress won't dare deny what I'll teach you. Let's go on without any more talking." Then she whispered something in his ear and told him to rejoice without fear. When they came to court, the knight said he'd returned on the appointed day, as he had promised. He said he was ready with his answer. Many noble ladies, many maidens, many wise widows assembled to hear him, with the queen herself sitting as judge. The knight was commanded to appear. The crowd was ordered to keep quiet, so that the knight could tell his listeners what thing mortal women love best. The knight didn't stand there dumb as an ox, but he answered the question in a loud voice, loud enough for all the court to hear.
"Your Majesty,"
he said,
"in general, women desire to rule over their husbands and their lovers, to be the authority above them. Though you kill me for saying this, this is what you want most. Do with me what you will. I am here at your command."
In all the court there wasn't a wife, maid, or widow who contradicted him. They all agreed he was entitled to keep his life. When she heard that, the old woman, whom the knight had found sitting on the green, jumped up. "My lady queen," she said, "before your court adjourns, do me justice. I taught the knight his answer. For this he promised to do the first thing I asked of him, if it lay within his power. Before this court I ask you, Sir Knight, to take me for your wife. You know I saved your life. If that's not true, swear it on your faith."
"Alas," answered the knight, "I know perfectly well that's what I promised. For the love of God, ask for something else. Take all my wealth, and let my body go."
"I curse us both," she said, "if I do that. Though I'm ugly, old, and poor, I don't want all the precious metal below or above the earth, unless I'm your wife, and your lover too."
"My lover," he said, "no, my damnation. A pity that any of my family would be so dishonored."
But it was all for nothing. In the end, he was compelled to marry her. Some might say it's negligent of me not to tell about the festive celebration that took place that day. I'll make a short answer. There was no festive celebration, only heaviness and sorrow. He wed her in the morning, and for the rest of the day he hid like an owl, so miserable was he at having such an ugly wife. The knight was so unhappy that when he was in bed with his wife, he wept and he squirmed. His old wife lay smiling. "Oh, dear husband, bless you," she said. "Does every knight behave this way with his wife? Is this the custom of King Arthur's court? I'm your own true love and your wife. I'm the one who saved your life. I never did you any harm. Why are you acting crazy? Of what am I guilty? For the love of God, tell me, and I will fix it."
"Fix it," the knight said. "It'll never be fixed. You're ugly and old and so low-born that it's no wonder I toss and turn. I wish to God that my heart would burst."
"Is this the reason you're so restless?"
"Yes," he said, "and no wonder."
"Now, sir," she said, "if I want to, I could fix all this in less than 3 days, if you would behave properly to me. You spoke about nobility that comes from old money. Such pride isn't worth a hen. The greatest gentleman is the one who tries to do all the noble deeds that he can. Our nobility comes from Christ, not from the wealth of our ancestors. Though we may claim to be noble because we've inherited all their riches, we can't inherit the virtue that made them gentlemen. You can take fire, carry it to the darkest house between here and Mount Caucasus, and shut the door on it. Still, it'll burn as beautiful and bright as if 20,000 men were looking at it. The fire will naturally do what it's supposed to do until it goes out. From this, we can see that noble behavior isn't connected to possessions. Though fire is always fire, the well-born don't always live nobly. A lord's son can act shamefully, even if he's a duke or an earl. A man's really a commoner if he performs low, sinful acts. Read Seneca and Boethius there. You'll see that noble is as noble does. Therefore, dear husband, I conclude that although my ancestors were humble, I hope God will grant me the grace to live virtuously. I'm noble when I begin to live nobly, avoiding sin. You scold me for being poor. God chose to live his life in poverty. Every man and woman understands that Jesus, heaven's king, wouldn't choose an evil way of life. Juvenal says, "A poor man can laugh at thieves." A poor man knows God and himself. I think poverty is a pair of spectacles through which a man can recognize his true friends. And now, sir, you scold me also for being old. Even if books didn't say so, honorable gentlemen tell us that men should be polite to an old man and call him father out of politeness. Because I'm old and ugly, you don't have to worry that I'll run off with some other man. Ugliness and age are the best watchmen. Nevertheless, I'll give you what you want. Choose now, she said, one of 2 things. To have me old and ugly until I die, a true and humble wife to you, or have me young and beautiful, and take your chances with the people who'll fill your house because of me, or whom I may meet someplace else. Choose for yourself, whichever you want. The knight thought and sighed and sighed. At last he replied,
"My lady, my love, my dear wife, I put myself under your rule. You choose yourself whichever is the most pleasant, and does us both the most honor. I don't care which it is. Whatever you want is good enough for me."
"Then I have gained control of you," she said, "since I can choose and rule as I please."
"Yes, certainly, wife," he said. "I consider it best."
"Kiss me," she said. "We're no longer enemies. On my honor, I'll be both to you. Yes, both beautiful and good. I pray to God that I may die mad if I'm not as good and as true to you as ever a wife was since the world began. And if in the morning I'm not as lovely to look at as any lady, empress or queen, in the east or west, then you do whatever you want with my life. Lift the curtain and see how it is." The knight saw that she was young and fair as she had said, and he joyfully took her in his arms and kissed her 1,000 times. She obeyed him in everything that might delight or please him, and so they lived until the end of their lives in perfect joy. Please, Jesus Christ, send us agreeable, young, loving husbands, and the luck to outlive those that we marry. I also pray that Jesus shorten the lives of men who won't be ruled by their wives. To mean, angry old tightwads, may God send the plague.